Hello and welcome to the developer commentary here in Lightmatter. We are very close to releasing our game on Steam, and we thought it would be interesting to record some developer commentaries because this project has been long and we have a lot of thoughts and feelings, and it could just be funny to share some of those with you.
Yeah, now we're 1 week from release.
Yeah, it's really strange we have been working on this like since 2016, and now it's almost out there. So very briefly, this game started out as a university project back in 2013, where we made a prototype and won some student awards, and then we decided a little bit later that we would like to pursue this concept further, and we decided to make Tunnel Vision games. And we are based here in Aalborg in Denmark, and we have been working on the game for a couple of years now, and hopefully you have played it. Hopefully you already played it. If not, that's also okay. The plan is to have these developer commentaries, one in each level, so you can kind of like hear about the design process and other things as well. So this is like just a brief introduction. My name is Gustav, and I'm working as the producer and a programmer here at Tunnel Vision. And my job is basically to do all the system programming stuff, like for example the saving system, the subtitles, some performance stuff, some gameplay stuff, lots of things here and there. And as a producer, I have also been the person who is in contact with like partners that can be, for example, publishers and PR and social media and all the things to talk about the game and get it out there. And I'm sitting here together with Benjamin.
Yeah, and I'm a narrative designer and programmer on this project, and that basically means, at least for the narrative side, that I've basically worked a lot with the universe and try to give the mechanics meaning and build up the story structure. And also, we were 3 writers on the project, but I'm the one that spent the most time on it, kind of spearheading that department. And on the programming side, I've done mostly graphics programming, so that means all the shaders in the game and kind of like the art style relevant things, and a lot with like how the game looks with the edge detection and comic book shading and the reflections in the shadows and stuff like that. But and also worked a bit on systems and gameplay, but it's mostly been computer graphics programming. So yeah, and maybe we should just start talking about this level.
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
So this is a puzzle game, as you probably know. But we decided to start the first level off not as a puzzle, but more as an introduction to movement of the game, because we do want this game to be accessible to many people, and we wanted to introduce the fundamental movement elements like turning and walking and jumping and vaulting, and then it felt like a good opportunity to introduce some world building, because that's some very simple stuff, and it's easy to introduce some environmental storytelling, stuff like that. And for instance, by having this tram that's leaving the facility and having this announcer voice talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bit interesting actually how this announcer voice that you hear in the beginning was one of the last things we implemented in the narrative, because we built this very big level. It introduces a lot of things, and we felt it was actually a bit empty.
Yeah, it was.
So having this announcer voice that kind of just lays a few breadcrumbs about where you are, but without directly answering it too much. Like we kind of felt that it gave a bit, it caught your attention a bit.
Mm-hmm. And it just gives you a place, and like it raises some questions. What happened before I arrived here, and what's going on, and who is this virtual character that this announcer is talking about, and like hopefully it makes you curious to follow and see what's going on in this game.
Yeah, and also the room that you wake up in is it's a bit weird, but that's a bit on purpose because we want people to think about what was I actually doing in there. Why is there servers, computers around me, and we like to not answer too many questions in the beginning, but
Yeah.
more ask questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's it for this level. Hopefully you will listen to the other developer commentaries. The idea is that multiple people from the team will talk about like various aspects. It can be puzzle design, it can be the narrative, it can be technicalities, graphics, art style, many things. So yeah, you can just continue playing and find these developer commentaries.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Have a glass of champagne and help us make a toast to a future made brighter by Lightmatter. Goodbye. The CEO of Lightmatter Technologies would like to welcome bankers, investors, and all of those who have doubted him to this launch event. To those of you on the public tour, hello. Now entering the stage, Virgil. He needs no introduction. He is the beating heart of this mountain, the greater of two minds, and the man who sacrificed his leg for White Rose.
Hi, I'm Ostea. I'm the artist on this game, and what I do is make props and make sense of the levels and how they look.
And my name is Lasse, and I'm the level designer. And I've put together most of the levels like with our building blocks, and from there we have taken them to the state they are now. So this level, how do we start on this one? Yeah, well, the most important part of this was introducing the main character, Virgil, and I guess Virgil is pretty much inspired by Elon Musk, and one of his main purposes is also to add some humor to the game, because very early on in the development, this game kind of looks like a horror game, we realized. So it was really important for us to get some jokes in there, where the most of the humor comes out of him insulting you and other people. And I guess that's very natural for our company, because that's the way we talk to each other.
Yeah, that's done a lot here. And to build up a bit on the game not looking scary, it was quite a challenging thing to pull off, because there's a lot of darkness, and it's a lab in most cases, so it's very easy to drift into a scary evil lab stereotype.
And
So,
completely empty as
yeah.
well. No other people.
Yeah, no people, everybody looks dead, maybe. So that was quite a challenge, and I had to work quite a lot with shape language and not making too many dark and pointy things that look malicious. And absolutely evil as in machinery that's meant to dissect or something like that. So that was quite something, and I worked quite a bit on making it look like humans actually stayed there and it was okay like an hour ago.
Yes.
Yeah, and although we are very inspired by Portal, obviously, from like Cave Johnson and Gladys and all that, we try to deviate a bit from it by not having a disembodied character, like showing Virgil up front that he's a human. That's why the primary focus at the beginning of this level is that you see his silhouette right in front of you. Yeah. And we wanted to also, the other purpose is to kind of sync up with him, that you notice him, that you have like a slight interaction with him, that he comments things you do, such as walking through a door or opening a door, and that's primarily based on that in other games it works pretty well, that you just get to sync up with the character that's talking to you.
And it's very step by step this level as well, because we wanted to kind of keep the player in one place and actually listening to Virgil as he speaks, to get that connection, so they don't run off and do something else, because it is in the beginning of the level, so of course there's interesting stuff to look at, but we wanted them to sync up completely with Virgil, so we have like small fish tanks that we lock the player in and restrict the play area that they have. And then of course we have the interaction between Virgil and the player, where they cooperate in opening the security doors so that the player can proceed. And he also, Virgil, hints towards the shadows being dangerous, but kind of, what does he say? He says,
It's dark in
there, you might trip. Like to kind of...
Such an obvious lie.
Yeah, and closes the door right in your face. And then of course he opens the gates into the core, which illuminates the path that you need to take afterwards towards the elevator. And it was always the plan that before we had Virgil in this level, it was always the plan to have the core shown in the beginning of the level, of the game, since it's, as you find out during the game, that it's the main reason for the shadows being dangerous. So you have to interact with it somehow throughout the game, and it was important for us to show it up front. And also the core shaking, emitting these shockwaves, also is kind of a convenience for us. It's first and foremost showing that it's unstable, like something went wrong. You already got that vibe from the first level, the previous level. But it also helps in us explaining how or why so many like bridges and walls have fallen apart throughout the level, to from a strict puzzle perspective, restrict the player to
we use the broken apart, like broken bridges and walls fallen apart and things like that to explain so much geometry that otherwise would make zero sense.
And it is like the puzzle had to make sense, so we came up with an excuse for that, and that became it. And it kind of makes sense. You can kind of see that. Okay.
This would cause a bridge to collapse.
Yeah. And I guess also when designing like the effects for the core, we went for powerful but not magical. That's why we it has sort of a northern light look on it.
It had to look not entirely like a laser, because well, lasers are kind of, when you look at scientific photos, they're kind of boring. I mean, not to diss lasers, but they're just a stripe. So it had to look like some kind of light phenomenon, and that's what we went with.
Light-based scientific beam of stuff.
Yeah, and I think like some of us, or a lot of us in the company, are big Half-Life fans, and I think and I think just subconsciously that influenced the design of it.
Yeah.
From the first Half-Life. Yeah.
But it is fun that I think it's episode 1, Half-Life 2, where they actually have a kind of similar structure in place, like a beam extending from a ceiling to a bottom, like a floor, and then you have to do something with it. But I mean, I couldn't remember it before we designed this.
It just happened.
But then I revisited Half-Life 2, and then saw it again.
that it?
I could talk a bit about James's office.
Yeah.
It was a really fun part to decorate that one because a lot of the facility is very impersonal. There are hundreds of people working here who don't have names in the story and don't have personalities, and even though I try to come up with okay, here is the corner of a person who makes this and that and is probably tidy and likes sandwiches and on weekends they sing karaoke. I came up with a lot of fake people who never are in the story, just have desks and left their personal belongings behind.
Family
It was,
pictures.
yeah, there's quite a lot of those. It was a lot of fun designing James's office because he's a real person and he's bulky, so there's weights, and he has a cat, so there's cat house and all kinds of things he would like. It was a lot of fun giving him a little bit of personality just through props that are in his office.
Yeah, he's a big sensitive man.
I even scaled up, like, we have these standard issue chairs and desks throughout the facility. I scaled up everything a little bit just because he's such a big person.
But then he has a
He's
very
enjoying
small,
it.
cute button that he has to press to open it.
Yes.
Just usually one finger.
Yes, that's one finger button for him, but for most people they would have to use a whole hand.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then towards the end of this level, when you reach the elevator, it's kind of our excuse to setting back the progress of the player, so they end up in the bottom of the facility and have to progress through the whole facility to escape.
Yeah.
And
It's-
that, yeah. Go ahead.
It's kind of inspired by like the trope where you start out very close to the goal of something, or start out with all the power-ups and then you go all the way back to square one.
Yeah.
And also, in order to show people the facility and show people the crystals and the mining area and stuff like that. So you learn something about the facility.
Unbelievable. There's more of you. Were you a part of the public tour? If so, I have just evacuated your tour guide. Don't panic. Now, your inability to follow evacuation orders is truly astounding, but I need you to pay attention. First off, walk through that door. Excellent. You have already exceeded my expectations. Wait, it's dark in there. You might trip. Let me light your path. The door requires 2 people to reopen. Proceed to my security manager's office. Now, I presume you know how buttons work. Impressive. If you continue like this, I might just hire you to mop the floor. Now scurry along, and you will reach the elevator to the exit. It's simple. I know it's difficult not to stare at the scientific wonder that is Lightmatter, but the launch event is over. Don't worry, my facility is sturdy. Get to the elevator. Excellent. The elevator will take you directly to our outpost. When you get there, journalists will immediately try to put words in your mouth. But stand strong and Tell them that Virgil, the CEO of Lightmatter Technologies, saved your life and that the side effects are under control. Goodbye.
Hello, my name is Ulrik and I'm the audio designer for Lightmatter. I've been working on the music and all the effects and all sound in the game. We're going to talk a little about Can't Walk in Shadow, this level. And the last level was Virgil's office, and there was a lot of noise, and you are crashing with this elevator into this level. So to make a contrast from all the noise in the previous level, it's actually pretty quiet in this level. So you start up with almost no sound, and then later on we fade in some music to ease you into the puzzle feeling mode. And Can't Walk in Shadows is a level that's designed towards, this is the first time you can actually die in the game.
Die, yes.
Yeah.
And of course it was important for us to make sure that at least there was a chance that the player could die, so they could experience the shadows firsthand. It is built towards both the more skilled players who kind of understand the mechanic up front, so they can react to what is going to happen, so they can actually prevent themselves from dying if they're quick. And then the ones who are not as quick will die and get the feeling of how the mechanic works. But no matter what, they have to cross the darkness to get to the other side and continue to the next level. And we forced them to do that by having this small jump puzzle with a blinking light, so they have to not react fast, but a little bit. Yes. And the beginning of the game is, or not the game, this level is kind of maneuvering you around the black pit or office area, whatever you want to call it, in the mine, to kind of emphasize the reflections of the shadows, and also to give room to Virgil to kind of talk to the player and explain some stuff.
Yeah, I remember that it was always this level. We always wanted it to feel like a contrast from the previous, also in the way that Virgil can't really reach out to you immediately. Like his voice is distorted, and kind of to make it feel a little more dangerous. This place you're in, that you've and also that you've fallen, you're far away from him now. But yeah, about like the dying in shadows. If we go back, in the beginning we didn't. In the beginning of the narrative, it wasn't necessarily the idea that you were gonna die in the shadows. Like that came in, I think, maybe 1.5, 2 years into the project. We find out that when you go into the shadows, you actually die. Like that's the explanation in the universe, because what happens is that you just go back a few minutes or a few seconds with checkpoints. But we went that direction with explaining that you actually die because we think it's interesting to have like this primal element in the game, which we feel like in many puzzle games there isn't really this death and this like something that feels actually dangerous and a bit eerie and sinister. So in the beginning, when you went into the shadows, the screen would just fade out. But then we added more things, and we added like the screen is being eaten up, like a vignette, like from the corners, and then we added like these bubbly things, like as if it's acid, like dissolving your body, that goes into the air, and we like slowly throughout these years like added a few more effects to the death effect, and it's very nice that we have a guy in the company who's very sensitive to motion sickness and stuff like that, because we do like a vertigo effect, and we could clearly tell when he got too sick from dying.
Yeah. And the death effect is also sound-wise it's following the bubbly. It's kind of a tar like matter. So
exactly.
So I also I also in the mix take all high pitch, high frequencies out of all the sounds that's there.
Yes, and that also supports the way the reflections look. We always like our reference has always been like tar.
Yeah.
And I think that even we've been wanting to do that from the very beginning of the project. I remember it just we just thought it was, I don't even know how it came up, but it's just something we've been wanting to do, and all of a sudden 1.5 years into the project we were able to do it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Hello, I'm Philip Newman, and I'm the CEO of Tunnel Vision Games. My primary responsibilities in the company is running the company.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yes, so it's all from economics to talking with publishers, to talking with funds, to like who give us money. It's like I've been trying to make sure that we get bread on the table each month as far as we can, and so it's like everything that has to do with the company that is not game development.
Yeah.
I have been trying to take care of and like catch the grenades so it doesn't explode in your faces, so you can focus. You can have a deeper focus on developing and designing the game.
Yep.
Going on. And besides that, especially in the later periods of the project, I've also come back to doing some actual work on the game, which have been very thrilling and
yeah, being back in Unity.
Yes, and being much needed for like craved almost. And you sometimes you only understand how hungry you are for it when you start eating again. So this level is was made to help us showcase the game better. We saw a need for a level that kind of explained the moving shadows concept without any mechanics, but the buttons that move stuff. And it was very important we saw that it was very important to have something that explained this more to people in a way.
Yeah, I guess we showcased this, not this level, but other levels at conventions, and in the beginning we just dropped them into a level with lamps and other mechanics, and some people understood the shadow concept, but others they needed something a little more like a softer introduction.
Something visually also
Yeah.
appealing in terms of stuff moving. Like,
Yeah.
some people have a hard time imagining how things are when they have moved and shifted, especially when there's something weird like this going on.
Yeah. So we decided to make this level where the shadows are just in your face and you cannot get through them without understanding that if you push the button, then something will move and then the shadow will also move with it. And our hope is that because this level is kind of like, if you don't get it, then you cannot solve it. So you have to push the buttons. It's very simple. But when you do it, you understand it. And then going forward, you should know how the shadows work in our game.
Yeah, at least on a very basic level.
Yeah.
And that is exactly the intention of this. And going to these conventions and showcasing it, like, we have seen that this level, it gets the job done.
Yeah.
Like, people, like, they seem to get this is actually the first real puzzle of the game where you actually have to do something active, besides jumping and moving to get forward. So we really wanted something that could like smooth the experience, both in terms of difficulty and in terms of the learning curve that is not too steep at this point in the game. Besides that, this is also a good entry point to talk about like some of the stuff that I've been happy to work on in the game as well, like, because going about 3 years without working pretty much in Unity or making something tangible, like I've been over the design and testing and like giving feedback continuously, but doing something on my own has been something that I haven't done in the 3 years and then started, and this was actually one of the first levels I got into doing, and also one of the last ones I ended up doing as well, because there are small things like the cameras that follow you. Like, I think I've placed almost all of them in the game. Going forward, there are small things like books, wheelbarrows, masks, some pebbles somewhere, and some pills, sick stuff.
All the things you see in the beginning of the level, especially.
That the entry room was actually the thing I made in the going last.
Okay.
Because this was just an empty like passage. And at the beginning, like when you do something over time, your confidence build up, and like I felt like I was ready to do a full room, and I felt like, hey, let's do something like a minor break. Like, this is where you start and grab your equipment and get going to the day. And there's something like that was immensely fun to build for me, because most of the time I was there, like, she made all the big things and the structure around it, and I just had to like put something here, 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 and here. Which was good because you could really see the difference all these small things made when you accumulated them. But I haven't done something from the bottom like that, and to be honest, like the first iteration I did, like Austere came over and said, "This doesn't belong here." Nope. I'm like,
yes,
okay.
He's very strict about that.
But it's nice because when you have rules, it's easy to abide when you learn them, of course.
I think it's interesting because, as we talked about in one of the first of these logs, this game started out as a university project where we all worked equally on the game. But then when we formed the company, we decided to take on different roles. So as a CEO, you did all the things besides the game, so you haven't really been into the game development for many years. And now you had the opportunity to jump back into it.
At least like knee deeps. Like I didn't like, it's not full dive.
No, but it was we really needed some last push in terms of the polish, and like the programmers, myself included, we were so busy with other stuff, so we just needed like to divide out the work, and I felt it worked really nicely.
Yes, it worked surprisingly well. I was a bit concerned also because like being the CEO, there's a lot of jobs in one job there, and like being able to juggle that with also doing this was something I was afraid of, like that could I do it fast enough, could I do it good enough, because it's been so long, and like you start to like doubt your own ability to just jump into it again and go. But
Yeah.
it went surprisingly smooth.
So, I remember this level is actually the first level we really decorated. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, this was the time when we had just decided that, okay, this part of the game will be in the mine. And I was researching how mines looked like and noticed a lot of tracks, obviously. And in this decoration and defining the mine style, because this was the first level that was in the mine that we decorated, I had to come up with something that would just dictate the rest of the mine levels. And I saw these moving platforms and turning things, and I thought, okay, well, how does that make sense in any way to be a real life thing? And there was thoughts about how electricity flows and how they regulate it with switches that turn around that were kind of similarly, and then I thought about how they redirect trains like that, and thus rail track shifters were born because, well, they had to redirect minecarts somehow through this huge cavernous hole in the mountain. So I decided they had to turn the tracks.
Yeah. And I think it's worth to mention that the way that we make puzzles is that we start with it like without any graphics at all, just like the puzzle idea, and then you add the decorations and give meaning to like what is this room, and then we add sound effects on top of that. Like that's the last part of the pipeline.
Yeah, like when I look at the levels first, when I get them to decorate, they are made out of white and gray cubes or just tiles, and there is nothing there usually, and then it's a challenge.
Yes, you give it life. Yeah.
And the cool part about this level and the way it's built is that there's quite a lot of things in the dark, so that helped us figure out how it should look. I think you have more to tell about this.
Yeah. So like the art style of the game goes very, very far back. Like was one of like, the first things we did once we had a couple of puzzles, but we quickly found out that we really need to be able to see what's going on in the dark without like compromising and not making it look like dark. So the white lines in the dark is really helpful for that. And it also helps create the game or make the game look less flat because we don't really have textures. And that's where the edge detection comes into play. And I remember that we were really inspired by a game called Lightmatter, which had a really fantastic art style, similar to like Frank Miller comics and just basically old comics, which have been really fundamental to our art style. And when we added that, the puzzles became a bit more easier to read, and it also makes the room feel bigger because you can actually see much more, especially in this room, this level. And the reason why we don't have textures in our game is because, well, we are a little team, and we're making a very big game for this team size, and textures is actually it requires a lot of work. With maybe you can maybe talk about unwrapping models.
the sheer amount of objects in the game we have, and if I had to texture them, that would have taken like a few more years of development, so not a good idea. So in this case, I tried to convey the mood and that it's underwater and it's damp and in the mine with colors, and try to make our standard set of grayish blues just a little bit greener and a little bit warmer to give it that damp feeling, but just enough so that it still appears blue, but gives us a feeling that, yeah, there's dripping water from the ceiling and all that.
Yeah.
All right now, here's the plan. The elevator dropped you to the center of the mountain, and the only functioning exit is at the top. Follow the green exit signs and you'll get there. Just do exactly as I say and you will be fine. If you want to complain about that, well, I can't hear you. Just realize how fortunate you are. You've extended your tour through Lightmatter technologies. It's unfortunate that the board voted against installing microphones throughout the facility. Their main concern being ethical ramifications. Good thing we still have cameras. Ah, excellent. Do you see that lamp down there? Pick it up.
So in this level, it's the first time that the player encounters the portable lamp mechanic, as we call it. And we wanted to ease the player into getting to know the mechanic, getting familiar with it. So it's very simple. Once the player pushes the button and the lamp turns on this platform and enlightens the path so you can continue, when you jump onto the platform, you're kind of in a small playground that is totally encapsulated all the way around, so you can't escape with the lamp. Because a rule in our game is that once you have a portable anything mechanic in your hand, you can't jump. And we encapsulated the player on this small platform to kind of limit their movement with the lamp and kind of get a feel for how it handled. And also we experienced in tests that people thought that they could jump with the lamp when they had to jump the gap, but they got a feeling that maybe I hit the space button too late. So we kept it very simple and contained them in this small pit. And the puzzle is, I don't know if you can call it a puzzle, but it's very streamlined level, so you can't really do it wrong. You have to point the lamp in the right direction to continue in the level. So once you continue beyond the platform with the lamp and you hit the button, the platform turns again, and the lamp will then illuminate the next path to the second part of the level, which was originally completely open, but is now closed off with a gate, giant metal gate that is open. And the original idea was just to make the level feel, or the place feel, bigger than just the puzzle area. The convenience of a small puzzle area where just the puzzle fit into, and then nothing beyond that. So the problem with that was that you were just simply walking for quite a distance without anything really happening. So we came up with just again a simple idea of having another jump puzzle with a train wagon moving sideways to kind of indicate that there's also moving light sources that you have to follow, or moving shadows rather, that you have to be aware of, and again to emphasize the danger of the shadows.
Yeah, so it's a very simple lamp puzzle, and then a small shadow puzzle at the end.
Yeah,
kind
just
of
to
Dex-like.
ease the player into it.
Yeah. and yeah, for the sound in this level, it's a very very huge level. It's a big level, and I've as sound designer I've worked a lot with the feeling of space and the reverb in the levels is very important. So in this level, the reverb is very long. This it's actually the system behind is 6 different reverbs that I can mix in the game in specific areas.
Because it also changes a lot in the room size. You can, for instance, when you get to the metal gate towards the ending, you're kind of shrinking down the room around you.
The room size, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's also in the connection halls. It's all they are always kind of small, so it kind of makes you feel safe because you don't have all this reverb around you. It's more enclosed in the connection halls.
Yeah.
And also in this level we have by the shadow Dex puzzle at the end. We have this train wagon that runs, and it's kind of a funny little thing because I encountered the problem that because the animation will reset the wagon, it also reset the sound, so it kind of clicked in place. So then we needed a solution for that. So behind the scenes, it's actually a circular motion of sound instead of the sound just snapping back with the animation.
So is it like a point with sound that runs in a circle back to its own starting position and continues?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously with the animation for the visible train wagon, it just resets once it hits its last mark in its animation path. Yeah.
isn't it? Focus groups called it heavy and clunky. I call them weak and stupid. In the hands of a capable miner, that lamp turns into one of their finest tools. Listen, I know that the shadows might look intimidating to you. A deep black obsidian-like tar that will devour you whole. But they're just simple gravity-bound anomalies. A temporary side effect of Lightmatter. You see, all of mankind's greatest breakthroughs had their kinks, and these kinks are manageable. If they weren't, I wouldn't be here in the facility fixing them.
So this is one of the more fundamental puzzles in our game. It seems very simple because you don't just have a couple of lamps you can play with, but we found out that this is a really important concept that this level teaches you.
Yeah, and it's a concept that we use in different puzzles where we build on it, and that concept is being able to like bend around corners with light. So use one lamp to light back and grab the other one, and then you can build on that.
Yeah.
Like I remember we were inspired by Tao's principle and like the jammers there.
Yeah.
Some of the introductory puzzles for jammers were kind of felt like this one. I remember, yeah.
Yeah, and it was really interesting because at this point in the development, we already went to a couple of conferences to show our puzzles, but we also went to like the local library. And normally when you playtest, people know that they're being playtested. So what happens is they're very polite and gentle, like they don't want to offend you if they think the game is not good. And we did not want that. We wanted like a real feedback. So we talked to one of the people at the library, and they actually have a lot of gaming equipment, like AAA games you can just come and play. So we asked, what if we install our game on your computer, and then we just go behind a couple of bookshelves and just stand there, so the kids who go in there, they think this is actually a real game and will play it if it is fun, and if not, then they will leave. So we did that, and it was really an eye-opener to get like real feedback and seeing how they enjoyed it and when they didn't enjoy it. And this puzzle was quite interesting to see because some people, they just got it immediately, like the idea about using one lamp and then placing the other lamp at the cone of that and like using it to bend around corners. And other people, they didn't get it at all and became quite frustrated. So that was really valuable feedback we received, and we could go back and like change it so to make it more intuitive.
You know that I was the first to wander through these caves? Although I came here with my former partner Arthur, I was the one who discovered the photon crystals. You might have heard that the side effects of those same crystals cost me my leg. Wrong. I conquered a mountain for the first photon crystal. Sheer persistence and willpower cost me my leg. A small price to pay for Lightmatter. Ah, there it is. Now, since you missed your tour, that giant beam of light you see is light matter. The source of that beam we call the core, a collection of massive photon crystals. It is so powerful that it shakes the very foundation of this facility. I still remember my first successful prototype. The beam seemed so solid, it looked like light had become matter. I built on that, and now look at it. A sustainable and renewable energy source that will save humanity. Yes, the launch today failed, but these shadows will not deter me from bringing light matter into fruition.